Hey there, a very good time, whatever time be at your place. So, up to now, we have learned up to the respiration in animals. And the next thing that I told you in the last part itself, that we are going to learn about respiration in human being. For that, first we have to understand what are the structures of human respiratory system, and then we'll be talking about further how that happens. Let me share my screen and start learning. So, you see this one, and I'm putting it on the full screen. I suppose more than me, you know my system well. Working's going on, so it's gonna be good. So basically, guys, into the life process, the topic that we are going to cover today is respiration in human being. I'm going to teach you respiratory system structure, mechanism of breathing, transport of gases. You will be understanding this point also. You know that thing, it's just that I have to help you to explore this thing, what we are going to learn. So let's start. So, first of all, guys, we have to understand what are the parts of the human respiratory system. I am breathing, you are breathing, but we have to understand what internally with this air is moving inside, what internally exactly is happening. So this is the nasal cavity, this is my nose, and internal cavity inside, this is known as nasal cavity, and these are the nostrils. I'm literally just, yeah, these are the nostrils. So from the nasal cavity, nostril air is moving inside and then it is going toward the pharynx. In the last part, I told you there are three parts of the pharynx: oropharynx, nasopharynx, and buccopharynx, laryngopharynx. Oro and buccopharynx is same, oral cavity and buccal cavity. Okay, so then there's laryngopharynx. So anyways, from the nasal pharynx, it is moving further. So it will be taking, air will be taking entry into the air pipe. There are two pipes, food pipe and air pipe. It will be moving up into the air pipe that we call it as the trachea. Inside it is having larynx also. Larynx is sound box. When we just speak, these are the sounds which are moving. There are certain cartilaginous strings kind of thing which just move, and that's how we hear. In case of male, larynx is known as Adam's apple. I mean, it's just larynx because it's just a little outside, but in female, it's not larynx. Anyways, now for the part you see, trachea further will be making two branches, right to the left, to the right and to the left. It form bronchi, bronchus. Bronchi is plural. So right main bronchus, left main bronchus. Now these branches are further going to make its parts. Further, it is going to make further branches, and then there are more branches. It will keep on happening. Bronchi, bronchioles, and secondary bronchioles, like that way. And yeah, this is right lung and this is left. Yeah, because we talk about our body. So our right, our left. Whenever we talk about human body, we're talking about ourselves. Consider that way. That's why this is the right. Okay. So anyways, guys, I have told you this in the last part also, that the respiratory system in all living organisms, they used to be having so many of the blood vessels around it, so that a good exchange of gases can happen, because there happen diffusion of oxygen and CO2. Okay. So now you see here, this is having further branches, which is not shown in this diagram, but that's fine. You understand it up. I'm going to show you further picture. Don't worry. So diaphragm. Diaphragm is really, really, really important part. This is like a partition from the abdominal part to the thoracic cavity, So when we breathe in, there is a thin muscular structure in the nearby the lung structure below it, that is known as diaphragm. Really helpful in breathing. Guys, I tell you one thing. I don't know whether you remember or not. This is the rib cage. This lungs, they are protected by the rib cage, and into the rib cage muscles are present. These muscles into the rib cage, they are known as intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles. So whenever you talk about how do we breathe, you have to mention intercostal muscles and diaphragm, how they are getting relaxed and contracted. In the mechanism part, I'm going to cover that up, so do not worry. Now, the basics information that I should provide you is into the nasal cavity. I'm just going to individually tell you function of them. Into the nasal cavity, air is filtered. It becomes warm and moisturized. And then it is helping in the, I'm talking about the nasal cavity, and then it helping in the transport to the pharynx part. Okay, so now talking about the oral cavity also, Yeah, from the oral cavity also transportation, a little one that is not required because they are anyhow connected with the pharynx, not a little one because when we breathe we keep our mouth closed, but that it also provide a little air. This is also warming and moisturizing the air, nasal cavity and oral cavity, both of them, but mainly because breathing nasal cavity is more important. Now talking about the pharynx, pharynx is the one which is transporting air to the larynx. Obviously, from the pharynx, this is transporting air to the trachea, but it also transport air to the larynx also, because then we can speak. Then next is epiglottis. Epiglottis, I have told you, it's like a flap covering food pipe and air pipe. I don't have to mention that. So larynx also, I have told you, this is the one that is producing sounds. Now the next one is trachea. Guys, whenever we breathe now, if you just observe, the air which is coming out, it is comparatively moisturized. Reason being, into the nasal cavity, oral cavity, I repeat myself, this is going, but into the trachea also, if I talk about trachea, there also it is moisturized. It become warm. So that's the reason that after the exchange of gases come back, we lose water vapor also. We lose water vapor while we breathe out. Understand this point. Okay. And now if I talk about the function of bronchi, this is controlling the flow toward the lung. It controls the flow of air towards lung. And into the alveoli, which is ultimately like this stem trachea, is further going to have its branches. I mean, the bronchi, I will say. Bronchi further will have the branches. And then bronchioles, primary bronchioles, secondary, like that way. And they're ultimately forming a little structure which appears to be like a bunch of grapes that is known as alveoli. Ultimately, gaseous exchange happened there. In the last part also, I told you that externally only gaseous exchange happened, cellular respiration happened in the cells. So here gaseous exchange is happening. Now, if you look at the diagram, one thing I forgot to tell you, see, if you're writing about the respiratory system, now one thing that you have to write it, we are having a pair of lungs that appears to be like a pinkish structure, which is present inside the rib cage, protected in it, covered by intercostal muscles and diaphragm on upper and lower side, on rib and the lower side, and the very external covering membranous part of the lungs, they are known as pleura. And then the pleural, which will be having a little cavity there, this is known as pleural cavity, and pleural, I should not write here, this is known as pleural fluid, which is present inside this cavity. What is the function of pleural fluid? It's kind of maintaining the, what do we say, pumping kind of exchange of gases there, because it's helping in increasing surface area. Also, it's maintaining the pressure. Also, it is protecting function. Okay. Okay, so now lungs are also having the blood, what do we say, arteries and veins. So you see bronchioles are there, but ultimately here, why they have not mentioned it up? Okay, that's fine, that's fine. From here, blood vessels are coming red and blue color. Internally, they will also be like, in the same way, bronchi are forming branches inside, blood vessels also form branches inside. That these are the arteries and veins which are coming toward it, and internally they are going to be bifurcating, and they will also be forming blood vessels, capillaries, because there are three type of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillary. I don't know whether you remember or not, but capillary is having the least diameter. And whenever exchange of something used to happen, exchange of any molecule gases always used to happen through the capillary. So these blood vessels are coming, ultimately they will forming the capillary, like these are the alveoli here, but then it will also be covered up by the blood capillary. So now I suppose this is clear to you. And one more thing, guys, that you have to remember, trachea is covered by the ring of cartilage here. Inside will be trachea, and externally, if you feel now, this is comparatively harder one. This is the ring of cartilage. It is also protecting in function. So now guys, I feel that's clear to you. Let's move forward. The next thing, actually, I wanted to show you alveoli. This is like ultimately, these are the tracheal bronchioles, I will say. Ultimately, what do you say? Terminal bronchioles, what you can say. Okay, so this is further, we'll be having these alveoli. Appears to be like a air sac. These are very thin air sac like structure, which is having a cell, which is having, what do we say, a tissue layer, which is very single cell, like, we call it like this, single cell tissue layer. very single cell, not even a double layer of the cells are present. So this is in directly contact with the blood vessels. These are the capillaries which are present here, blood capillaries. And here they are in contact, and here blood filtration happens. So if you see the structure now, this is air sac, this is an alveoli. Here air is coming, and into the blood vessels, blood is present. When the blood is coming into the lungs, guys, if you remember the structure of heart, from the heart, blood always go toward the lungs for oxygenation and the deoxygenation process whatsoever happens. So here deoxygenated blood will come, which is having least of oxygen. It will come, and from there it will take the oxygen, it will go back. It will be the oxygenated blood which will go back toward the heart. Okay, so now CO2 and O2 throughout the air sac are exchanged because of the differences in the partial pressure by diffusion. From high partial pressure to low partial pressure, it will be moving. Partial as an individual pressure of them. So from high to low, it will be moving, and and by diffusion they move. Simply by diffusion, that CO2 is coming in there and oxygen, and the CO2 we breathe out, and oxygen go inside. I'm going to show you structure of this as well. How, like, they're having the structure. I mean, they're having the structure. Let me show you. Let me show you this diagram. Then I'll come back to this mechanism of breathing part. So basically here, this is an alveolar wall. And if you remember tissues chapter from the 9th class, you have learned that all the tissues used to have a basement membrane. Basement substances and basement membrane. That endothelial layer is there. Endothelial as in epithelium, single layered epithelium. You remember? Epithelium is of two types, simple and stratified. Simple is single layer, but basement membrane is always present. So this is one alveolar wall which is having endothelial layer. Cell blood capillary is also in the same way. It is also having the epithelial simple one with the basement membrane, and it's not very complex, and your blood is coming simple. So oxygen will be taking entry inside. They are present all together, and CO2 will be taking exit. That's it. This is how blood exchange happens. Now, guys, I'm going to take you to the transport of gases topic also from there. But before that, I would like to cover the topic mechanism of breathing. Guys, before I proceed with this topic, just breathe. Feel your internal organs. Many students get confused at this point that exactly how this happened, but just feel it up. That while the time you breathe in, your chest cavity size increases, while the time you breathe out, the chest cavity size gets normal, and just it reduces your muscle. So there happen two things. One is inspiration, you call it as inhalation, and one is expiration, we call it as the exhalation. Now, guys, I have a question. Air, it used to move from high pressure to low pressure or low pressure to high pressure? Think about it. I'm waiting. Yes, it used to move from high pressure to low pressure. There is air around us and there is air inside the body. That comparison happens. Inside, if air pressure is less, we will breathe in. Inside, if air pressure is more, we will breathe out. That's the concept. Now, what happened during the time of inspiration? Diaphragm contracts. Contract as in it's just moving down. Contract ka matlab down hota, remember that. Diaphragm is contracting in that way. Its structure is like that way, so its contraction is moving down. ठीक है? Contract का मतलब ये नहीं कि ऊपर जाएगा. So I'm speaking in Hindi. Sorry for this. I am saying diaphragm is contracting. It means it's moving down. Just remember. So while the time we inhale, diaphragm contract, just move down, and then the volume of the chest cavity increases. And I told you I'm going to mention about the intercostal muscle also. External intercostal muscles which are attached with the ribs, they contract. They contract, and then thoracic cavity expands. They are contracting like that way because thoracic cavity is increasing, not like that way. The muscles are kind of contracting. So anyways, here the volume increases. So when the internal volume increases, air pressure externally become high, and internally this is low. Low because then now area is high and air is comparatively low. So that's why we breathe in. That's the mechanism. Now, what happened into the expiration? Everything just relaxed. Thoracic cavity reduces, external muscles relaxed, diaphragm come back to the normal position, and then volume become less. Because of the less volume here, pressure become high, and then we breathe out. That is the concept. That is what you have to remember. That into the inspiration and expiration, air is moving inside and outside. But what is the concept? It's all about the air pressure. Ultimately, when air is entering inside during the time we inspire, from here, alveoli will be there, which will be fastly exchanging gases with the blood. And then when we breathe out, they are just pumping all the gases outside. That's what you can also mention. And you can also mention regarding the partial pressure also, that during the time when we breathe into the alveoli, partial pressure of oxygen increases, and here partial pressure into the blood vessel is less, so it moves inside the blood vessel. And during the time of expiration, here partial pressure of CO2 is more, and externally into the nature partial pressure of CO2 is less, so it moves. And same is in the blood vessel. Here also from the blood vessel moving out, because from high to low partial pressure. That's what the mechanism of breathing is, and that's it. This much is enough for you, and I hope you understand it. So guys, let's move forward. Now let's talk about the next thing. Let me put my glasses on. These are anti-glares. I didn't tell you in the last part. I forgot the word. Okay, so the next one. The next one is transport of gases. I'm going to relate it further to the same diagram. Transport of gases means I have told you that into the cellular respiration, oxygen will come into the cell and CO2 will take exit, and into the mitochondria, all the reactions happen. How oxygen come to the cell? So from the blood, when oxygen is taking entry, this oxygen is going to be there in all the tissues of the body, in all the tissues and the cell. And through that, it will be going into, oxygen will be going in all the cells of the tissues. And here cellular respiration will happen and CO2 will move back. So this whole story, the transport thing, it used to happen through the bloodstream. Through the blood, oxygen is moving toward all the cells. And after it is utilized, a waste product CO2 will be moving back. Now question arises, how this oxygen and CO2, they are moving in the blood? Are they moving randomly? Are they combined with something? That's what we have to talk about into the topic transport of gases. I have two blank slides. I have a lot of space to write, so let's start. Transport of gases. So first you have to write that oxygen and CO2, they are transported from where to where? Oxygen from alveoli to the blood cells and CO2 from the blood cells to the alveoli. Just read it out. So the first thing that we have to talk about is transport of oxygen. Transport oxygen used to transport by two ways. One is by hemoglobin. If you do remember it, hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment present in our body. It is a structure, if we talk about it, is proteinaceous in structure. It's made up of protein. And let me write it. It is a respiratory pigment. And it is protein in nature. And it makes complex with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. You know, hemoglobin can make complexes with oxygen, it can make complexes with carbon dioxide, but other than that, there are many pollutants present in air, like cyanides, carbon monoxide. They can also make complex with hemoglobin. And that's when the problem starts, when we breathe in them. I'll tell you that thing also. Add in information. Okay. So here, respiratory pigment, oxyhemoglobin is being formed. So if I talk about, like, suppose there is 100 ml of blood, into the 100 ml of blood, nearby 20 ml of hemoglobin complexes you will find. I mean 20 ml of oxygen, you may say. This is transported with the help of oxyhemoglobin. That's it. The point is that it's just oxygen is moving to the cells in the blood. So first, in that case, it may complex with hemoglobin. One hemoglobin can make complex with 4 of the oxygen molecule. And additional information, iron is present inside the HB structure. That's it. Okay. So now next is it also used to move by plasma. So it is dissolved in the plasma, and that's how it moves. If I talk about that there is 100 ml of plasma, there might be nearby 34 oxygen molecule, 34 ml of oxygen. Its ml values I'm written here. It will be moving up, dissolved in plasma. That's how oxygen used to be transported into the blood. I suppose now that's clear to you. Let's talk about how CO2 is transported. CO2 is a waste product of the cellular respiration from the cell. It moving toward the alveoli. So let's start learning about how they move back. Okay, so transport of carbon dioxide. Transport of CO2. So first, it used to move in the dissolved form in the plasma. Not very much soluble, but if I talk about that there is 100 ml of blood, there might be 2.7 ml of CO2 which will be moving into the plasma. Second is as carbamino compound. Sorry, that's carbamino compound. Actually, carbamino as in HB makes complex with CO2. So 3.1 ml per 100 ml of the blood, it will be moving like that way. So this is transported toward the lungs. Now third is as bicarbonate ion. That is also well soluble. Bicarbonate is like maximum because hydrogen ion are present in the blood. They make complex with the carbon dioxide. They make carbonic acid. So CO3 2 negative. H2CO3 formula is then H2CO3 is carbonic acid. So bicarbonate ion is this. So they also maintain the pH of the blood that way. This is a very functional one. Very soluble, nearby 45.7 ml of carbon dioxide will be moving up through the 100 ml of the blood. So point is that is how they are moving. That is how oxygen is moving toward the cells and the tissues of the body, and that is how all the waste product, all the carbon dioxide, which is a waste product of the cellular respiration, it is moving toward the alveoli, and that's what we breathe out. So with this, we are done with the basic information about the respiration, respiratory structure, and how respiration happen in us, and what is the mechanism of breathing, and how transport of gases happen. In the next part, I'm going to teach you transportation. We are going to learn about the circulation in animals and in plants. But before that, as I told you, I'm going to show you an additional information. I have a video, so I'll play that for you. It's just for the respiratory part. So I was saying additional information I'm providing here. As I told you that hemoglobin is very much capable of forming complexes with cyanide and CO. These are the part of the pollutant. They are having more affinity as compared to oxygen and CO2. If we breathe carbon monoxide, we can die because it will abruptly and immediately make complexes with hemoglobin. In our body, oxygen is really very important. It's needed everywhere. But if we are breathing in, it will replace oxygen and CO2 and will be all hemoglobin CN complex and hemoglobin CO complex. So we will die because of the deficiency of oxygen. You must have heard about a disease, I don't know whether or not, blue baby syndrome. This is because of the cyanide. Blue baby syndrome, why they have mentioned it? Because blue means deoxygenated. So when there is no oxygen in the blood, in the baby who's also that was observed, but yeah, that's the conditions because of the cyanide and these carbon monoxide. Reason being hemoglobin is being replaced, it's not having oxygen, so there's a lack of oxygen in the body, so deoxygenated blood is all through the places. So that's what a blue baby syndrome is. This is an additional information. Now I told you I have a video. Let me show you that video. Here you see this up. The first video is actually over the respiratory system. It's just everything I have shown you pictures of that, whatever was necessary. But that's fine. I'll show you that. So first thing, we are breathing in, air particles are moving. I mean, air is moving inside. This is bronchi, which further will be having bronchioles. Ultimately, these are the alveoli, which is covered up by the blood vessels. And here, gaseous exchange happening to the alveoli. So this is what mechanism. how chest cavity is increasing its size and decreasing, how diaphragm is moving up and down. I mean, contracting and relaxing. When it is moving up, it's relaxed. Okay, remember. So inside it, this is alveoli and this is blood vessels. How exchange of oxygen and CO2 happen. See, RBC used to have hemoglobin inside it. So it'll immediately be taking up oxygen, and inside it, hemoglobin will be present, making complex and taking it away. Okay, did they show CO2? Yeah, CO2 is moving. CO2 moves in random way. It also come with the RBC, but least of it, but directly from the bicarbonate. Acha, okay. The rest and when they're talking in all the animal, they make oxyhemoglobin. That's how it's being transported. The second one is transportation of gases. Don't worry, these notes are going to be shared with you. You will be able to see the video. I have already added it. These are all the sections that I've created. So here they have shown the partial pressure thing, that partial pressure is the key behind the exchange of gases. It's used to move from high to low. Alveoli, RBC, and cells. If it is a high partial pressure, they'll be moving up. And that's what I explained in this video. So hemoglobin will be making complex with oxygen. So I suppose these are all things I have explained you already, but that's fine. You will be able to see this video. And yeah, on my part, I'm done. Whatever is required for your learning, that is required. If you feel you want to see this video, I can play that. See, hemoglobin is taking up oxygen. Because I'm just leaving it inside. You might be thinking in your brain, I wanted to see this video. I can't see that in see it. PCO2 means partial pressure of CO2. From high to low, they are moving. Na? That is what I explained in this video. So they are considering this is alveoli from the blood vessel. It is moving through the hemoglobin toward all the body part. That's it. So now finally we are done on this. Let me come back to the presentation thing. I have just a few questions. So what is human respiratory system? I will not answer this question. Let's move. What are important respiratory system parts in human? I don't have to answer this question. You know that already. It's fine. I have added very easy question, but that is again totally fine, guys, because you have many questions in your practice book. Practice it up, and then please practice it up, because then you will be having doubts. If you do not have any doubt now, there are two things. One, you have not learned it properly. Second, you have done it in a good way. So there must be doubts. Just learn in a proper way. If you have any doubt, post it on the discussion board and your queries are going to be answered ASAP. I'll see you up in the next part. I'm going to finish your chapter. Don't worry. Bye-bye.